My name is Mariah Blazek, and this is my presentation over exceptional students in the classroom. The first one is learning disabilities. That is reading disability abilities and dyslexia, as well as phonemic analysis, word identification, reading fluency, and reading comprehension. There's also problems with mathematics from mild to severe. There's two issues, procedural problems and fact retrieval. And then with their memory, many students with learning disabilities have troubles with short-term, long-term, and working memory. Emotional and social characteristics, they experience more symptoms associated with depression than students without a learning disability, experience higher levels of anxiety, and have more emotional difficulties. The majority of these students, however, do not have experience mental health problems. For the universal design for learning, it is important to use graphic organizers and all types of organizers, but make sure to include lots of visuals and graphics. The next one is communication disorders. So speech and language articulation disorders. They can be in the form of substitutions, omissions, additions, and distortions. Apraxia affects how the student plans to produce speech. And then voice disorders, so the pitch, duration, intensity, resonance, and fluency disorders. For UDL, using both audio and visual formats to teach. And then instead of assigning a written report, allow the option of a PowerPoint presentation. Emotional behavioral disorders. Anxiety is one of the most common. Specific examples could be separation anxiety, generalized anxiety disorder, specific phobia, panic disorder, and social anxiety disorder. And then for mood disorder, that could be bipolar disorder, oppositional defiant disorder, conduct, or schizophrenia. For behavioral characteristics, there's externalizing behavior, which is disruptive or annoying behaviors, aggressive. Bullying could be a form. And then internalizing behavior that includes withdrawal, depression, anxiety, fearfulness. So a way for to use UDL in the classroom is using technology, and that'll help students self-regulate their behavior. Attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. They have the predominantly inattentive type, which is difficulty paying attention, difficulty listening and following instructions, or finishing tasks. They're not very good at organizing, and they can't avoid distractions. The next type is predominantly hyperactive impulsive type, and that is difficulty staying seated, keeping their hands and feet still, resisting constantly, having to be on the go. They can't wait their turn, and they often interrupt others. And then you have the combined type, which is both of those types. That is actually the most common one. For the UDL, work on goal setting and organization skills. Reward the students when they behave correctly. Be sure to praise them. For inattentive skills or students, have them seat and maybe in a quiet area. Give them more time to complete their work. And then for the impulsive students, correct them gently, supervise them closely, and when transitioning, be sure to keep an eye on them extra. The next one is intellectual disabilities. So people with an intellectual disability often have impairments in memory that can include short-term, long-term, or working memory. They have difficulty with generalizing skills so that they learn in school and bringing that home to the home and community settings. They often need prompt before they start a task. And for the UDL, using an e-reader would be helpful. It reads to them out loud. Also, the textbook discussed a self-determined learning module of instruction that is used to develop their self-determination skills in school and post-school environments. The next one is autism, and some characteristics of autism are social communication impairments, and that identifies as three criteria, which is social, emotional reciprocity, nonverbal communication, and maintaining relationships. So they must have at least two of the four criteria under repetitive restrictive behaviors and interest. Some of those could be like excessive reliance on routines and use of nonverbal verbal rituals or insistence on sameness. Another example could be highly circumstanced, infatuated interests that are atypical in terms of intensity or focus. And then students with autism, may exhibit one of the four categories of problem behavior: self-injurious behavior, aggression, tantrums, and property destruction. It is also shown that children that have autism have sensory and movement impairments. So the universal design for learning for this one, cognitive learning strategies, social decision-making strategies, and self-directed learning strategies, they're all important and effective strategies to teach. And then adaptations may need to be made to best fit the student. All situations are different, but maybe a new seating arrangement may help. And there will be adaptations to assignments and how the teacher teaches. The next one is multiple disabilities. They have significant impairments in intellectual functioning. It is often approximate 2 standard deviations below the mean, which means they have extensive and pervasive needs for support related to cognitive tasks. Self-care skills are especially important. And then significant motor and physical challenges. They often have motor impairments that can produce abnormal muscle tone or underdeveloped muscle tone. And then sensory, they may have hearing and vision impairments. Almost all students with multiple disabilities, they have a communication impairment. They're not engaged in communicative interactions during school. For the UDLs, technology to record task or prompts. It can display digital pictures or video clips that show the student performing each step in a learning task, and then using portfolios to address the progress of students. Then we have physical disabilities and other health impairments. That is like cerebral palsy, spina bifida, epilepsy, and asthma. So a universal design for learning to best fit them in my classroom would be to provide self-awareness for them, and then adapting physical education, because most of the time they will that'll affect their physical education. So just making sure they feel comfortable in that environment. The next one is traumatic brain injury, emotional, behavioral, and social changes. So they have social problems, higher level of internalizing and externalizing behavior problems, and increased risk for challenges related to redirecting or stopping their ongoing actions. For cognitive and academic changes, there's increased rates of intellectual impairments, particularly related to nonverbal skills, troubles with memory and executive functionings of planning, problem solving, and abstract reasoning. And then there's also physical changes, so like coordination problems, physical weakness, and fatigue have been some examples that have been recorded. For the universal design for learning, just varying how fast the information is being processed, and then allowing varying response time, and so giving that students more time to think. Okay, the next one is hearing loss. There are 3 different communication options. The first one is oral or aural, and that emphasizes the amplification of sound. And then there's also a manual, which would be like sign language or finger spelling. And then the next one is total or simultaneous communication, which is using a wide combination. That's the least known one to use, because it does require you knowing them all, and most people would rather have one over the other. And then their academic achievement, that depends on their individual characteristics, as well as parents, teachers, and school programs. Usually they have challenges in reading and writing. And then for social and emotional development, there are 4 factors that affect deaf students' social and emotional development. For the universal design for learning, there may need to be the general education teacher, a teacher of the deaf, and a paraprofessional, all working in collaboration with a speech-language pathologist. And then there should be 4 levels of planning. Those include concept planning, language goals planning, speech goals planning, and auditory goals planning. Visual impairments, they experience different social interactions because they cannot share the same common experiences with their sighted friends. They have limitations in ability to get around, and because they are limited to move safely. For universal design for learning, students can't really understand books that have a lot of pictures obviously. So if the pictures rely on experiences like walking in a forest, that might not be the best fit. So making sure that the students can understand the text. And then there's also an example of using TDI, which turns worksheets into Braille. The last one is gifted and talented students. They have a high general intellect. They show creativity. It's expressed in multiple ways. And then they also have a leadership ability, which characteristics include engender others' trust, assess situations quickly, and take direction for the benefit of a group. For best fitting them into my classroom, a curriculum extension. So they learn content more quickly. They don't need to review as much as their peers. So extension activities should not repeat the same tasks, but challenge them at a higher level. And then cognitive taxonomies is an ordered list of cognitive skills or activities that can be used to differentiate expectations.